What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to the SI Sooners podcast. Okay, listen, it's been a crazy week for both me and for Ryan. I think we're back, right? Ryan, we're back, I think.
Sort of.
Probably better late than never is what we're going to call it. You can see if you're watching on the video, got a little bit different format today, and there's a reason for that. So, but we're going to try and stay on top of this thing as we go along. Me and Ryan are a two-man staff, and I remember working for newspapers in the 80s and 90s, two-man staff. God, we were so overworked, but we loved every minute of it. Just like me and Ryan, love every minute of bringing this to you guys. We got softball coming up today. In fact, the Sooners already beat Baylor. And then later tonight, they're going to beat Texas Tech. That's not a prediction. That is a fact. We got some football talk coming up. We talked to Porter Moser today. How great is that? We already got stories posted on the website. We're going to tell you later in the podcast what's going on all summer at SI Sooners, allsooners.com. But today, you might be able to tell from a little bit of feedback, a little bit of noise, a little bit of background, that Ryan is at Hall of Fame Stadium in Oklahoma City. He's covering the softball games for us. We are going to start calling him Big Game Ryan. I mean, the guy's first game for us was the Cotton Bowl. He got to do the NCAA tournament in the bubble in Indianapolis, and now he's beginning what everyone hopes around here anyway, is a national championship season for Patty Gasso and her squad.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just lucky enough to be south of Oklahoma City, I guess, to get to do all that stuff. So apologies if you hear any feedback, anything like that. Like you said, John, the Sooners already knocked off the Bears, had a little trouble there in the first inning, but got it back on track, got rolling. They will beat Texas Tech. They are combined 40-0 against Texas Tech across 3 games already this year. And going on right now, I'm in the radio well above Hall of Fame Stadium. The Cowgirls and Iowa State are playing right now. Winner will face Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game. So look, if we hear a little cheering in the background, all that stuff, just live with us. This is what you get. We are in it. We are in the middle of all the sports going on in Oklahoma right now.
The cheering for Oklahoma State and or Iowa State will not be coming from Ryan, will not be coming from Chris Plank. It will be coming from OSU fans or Iowa State fans out on the concourse in the seats is my guess. Anyway, that's Ryan. He's in Norman usually, but he's in Oklahoma City right now. I'm John Hoover. I'm in Tulsa. Broken Arrow, actually, if you want to get technical. Appreciate y'all listening to the SI Sooners podcast, and thanks for watching on my YouTube channel. Again, a little bit different format today, so we appreciate you hanging with us. SI Sooners is a Fan Nation affiliate, part of the Sports Illustrated Network. You know our website. It's allsooners.com. So let's talk Porter Moser real quick. We had the Oklahoma basketball coach on the Zoom today. That guy, I'm telling you, has managed to keep OU hoops in the news throughout the duration of spring football, which I'm not sure Lon Kruger ever did, right? First of all, you get a new coach, then you got to hire staff, and then he's got to recruit a bunch of guys, and then he's got to sign a bunch of guys through the transfer portal, which Lon never had to do any of that. But yeah, I mean, he's got, 5 transfers? He almost got a 6th, Ryan, which was a pretty big one, but they lost out on that one to their in-state rival.
Yeah, and that would be former Booker T. Washington star Bryce Thompson, the former 5-star. He was at Kansas for a year. I don't think anyone's really going to hold him to that year, though. He was dealing with some injuries, dealing with getting acclimated to Bill Self's system in the hardest time, in the last 100 years to deal with any injuries or get acclimated to a new system. And John, like you said, I think even Oklahoma being in that race till the end is kind of a minor victory, because the Thompson family, it seemed they were so content to just go with what was familiar, whether it be Tulsa, whether it be Oklahoma State, a staff that they've built those relationships for, the entirety of Thompson's recruitment. For Porter Moser to come in to basically ask the Thompson family if they could delay their decision by another weekend at least, so they could get the staff finalized, get one final Zoom. They got all of that. So did they end up with Bryce Thompson? No, that's unfortunate. There are no moral victories, stuff like that. But it just shows you recruiting in this state. Mike Boynton is going to be just a dynamo on the trail. He's just got that magnetic personality. It sounds like early on, Porter Moser is going to try to be able to go blow for blow with him. Now, what that will translate to on the court, we'll have to see, John, because it's going to be a monumental task for any coach to bring in this new of a squad and get them rolling. But he's doing all the right things so far between the hires and his work on the recruiting trail, building this roster through the portal.
Yeah, that's well said. The fact that he was top three, I guess, final three for a guy that he had no time to recruit and didn't have a previous relationship with. So, no, pretty good job by Porter Moser, even finishing in that spot. Got the bronze medal. You know, like you said, you don't get, well, you don't. There's no runner-up trophies, but you get a bronze medal. I can say this after this Zoom call today. I can't say enough about Porter Moser's energy, his enthusiasm. You know, that positivity, everything he talks about. He's just infectious to listen to. He's got a bunch of new coaches. He's got a bunch of new transfers. He's got a bunch of new freshmen coming in this summer. He's got a bunch of guys returning from last year. And Ryan, he spent time today talking about each and every one of them.
Yeah, it was really impressive. And he almost did a Patty Gasso on us, which, Patty Gasso, the veteran, she knows pretty much what the storylines are coming into any press conference. Usually in her opening statement, she'll take your first 4 questions and answer them. Porter Moser kind of did that today. He opened it up talking about the staff. Then he had to almost restrain himself and say, well, you guys will ask all the questions about all the other players. He named every single guy that he's been going through spring workouts with, went through all the transfers by name, even kind of made some allusions to the recent JUCO commit that he can't actually talk about, and tried to kind of, paint in the gray areas there. He's a guy that gets it. And it's been really interesting just because that's something you don't really know for sure. When you have a guy coming from one of those smaller colleges, one of the, the mid majors, you don't know how they're going to respond to the bigger spotlight, the bigger stage. And I was listening to a podcast from one of the student reporters from Loyola Chicago, and said, even in that Final Four year, it was just Porter and that student reporter in the press conferences alone for the first half of the season. Now, all of a sudden, you've got 30 minutes with 20 media members, asking all the questions you can, using up all the time. It's just been, I'm always interested in how that dynamic goes. But a guy like Porter Moser, like you said, John, he's got that infectious energy. It sounds like he's someone who's more than willing to sit down and answer any and all questions you've got about Oklahoma basketball, which is how Lon Kruger was. That's how Lon Kruger understood. That's how you're going to have to build that goodwill at a place like Oklahoma, where football will always be king. So a great start. Obviously, he's done everything he can off the floor. He's going to have to win on the floor, but he'll have time to do that.
You make a good point with that too. I remember 1999 through 2002, I was on the Oral Roberts basketball beat, and they had hired Scott Sutton. Was his first year was 99. So it was real informal. There were TV guys from Tulsa there, and maybe sometimes a magazine guy or a weekly newspaper guy once in a while. But 75% of the time, it was me and Scott Sutton sitting in a room, 6 feet apart, 10 feet apart, or whatever. He's at the table giving a press conference to one guy. And a couple of times I was like, Scott, can we just do this out here I've got my laptop right here. I've got my story ready to go. I just need a couple of quotes. And he would stop by and drop off a couple of quotes. Times have changed, have they not? With the way social media is, basketball constantly. I mean, there's the news cycle is constantly going. So it was fun today to get some FaceTime with Porter, because you were at the press conference that introduced him. I was not, so I was able to say, hello, my name is John Hoover, and I like long walks on the beach and stuff like that. I was able to fire off a couple of questions to our new basketball coach in the state of Oklahoma today. One of them was about, I think people took this the wrong way. I wanted to ask about how fundamentally sound the new guys were. And I think people have taken that to mean Hoover doesn't think these guys are athletic. Right. So I was like, wait a minute. Porter was talking about, we got some athleticism now. I'm like, I didn't say anything about athleticism. I'm talking about fundamentals. I can appreciate, everybody wants a Jimmy Chitwood, but I can appreciate those dudes out there that are setting screens, playing defense, getting rebounds, 8 rebounds a game. That's what I'm talking about, fundamental basketball. And I think Tanner Groves, Jacob Groves, Jordan Goldwire, and Ethan Shagwell, I think all those guys are fundamental. So he brings them through the transfer portal. The way he answered the question was in 2 ways. And this is fair. He said, for one, we acknowledge that our roster has to get more athletic. Fair, definitely fair. And then he said, those guys are fundamentally sound, yes, but they also are more athletic than you think. So I was like, okay, cool. Good for him. So he seems very optimistic about the 4 guys that they've gotten through the portal so far officially. And then I asked about my second question a little bit later was about David Patrick, the new associate head coach. He hired him from Arkansas. was previously a head coach at UC Riverside, which, if you think about it, gives Porter really a sounding board as he takes on being a head coach at a new place, right? Hey, what do you think about this? Hey, how should we do this? How did you used to handle these situations? But specifically, I asked him about Patrick's international experience. He's from Australia, native of Australia. He coached the Aussie national team at the highest level. And his answer there was kind of two-pronged as well. One, yes, Patrick brings that international experience. So there's something that Porter Moser can learn from, right? Guy who's coached around the world. He says he can steal ideas from him. I thought that was cool. But more importantly, obviously, is he's extremely well connected in the international basketball community. So think about that, Ryan. It gives him real access to some extremely talented international recruits from around the world.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, he mentioned the big ones, your Ben Simmons, Dellavedova, Patty Mills, those guys. But what a lot of people might not necessarily know is the NBL, the Basketball League in Australia, they've taken leaps and strides over the last even 5 years. And when you're talking about, you're starting to see this influx of players who are willing to forego college basketball to go to the NBL. When you get those extra eyeballs, that filters down. So it's going to be a pipeline that I think is just going to continue to produce. Maybe it's not 20, 30 guys a year, but Oklahoma is going to have a foot in the door for the best talent in Australia that wants to come stateside and try their way into college basketball. So that's something that Porter Moser, in his introductory press conference, John, he had said that, there were a lot of questions about, you've been in the Chicago area for so long. Are you going to be able to get down and recruit? Well, grabbing KT Turner, like that's going to help in this region. But he said he wants to be a national pipeline guy. Well, it's now an international pipeline guy. So very interesting ad. And especially when you talk about all the X's and O's and that experience in that UC Riverside means he's got some West Coast connections as well. So Porter Moser's done a good job bringing in a diverse staff. And look, you're starting to see national writers basically say Oklahoma, Texas, they've assembled some of the better staffs in the country. Pretty good setup for Moser and Chris Beard getting it going for the Longhorns.
I thought your question was pretty adept as well. The way the recruiting has changed with the transfer portal, you used to be able to plan out, okay, this guy's a 4-year guy. This guy might be a 3-year guy. This junior college is a 2-year guy. And hey, we got one guy that's a 1-year guy that can really help us. Well, now everybody's a 3-year guy, a 4-year guy, a 2-year guy, a 1-year guy, a 4-year guy, a 3-year guy. It's like, how do you plan this out? You said it a little better than I just did, but I thought he had a good answer to that too.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure that I said it much better than you. I was thinking my way through it, but he basically said, because this is a rare situation coming in, having so many guys into the portal. It's not one of those things where, okay, you've got one spot and you need to fill it. And if it's a 2-year guy, awesome. Porter basically said, now with the transfer portal working both ways, you never know, honestly, how long you're going to have somebody. So it just becomes you have to find a guy that's a fit for you, for your program, and for what you want to do. And if that happens to be a 1-year fit or a 4-year fit, like, you're going to figure all that out on the back end. The most important thing is just sifting through that portal, finding guys that work for you, fit what you want to do, and fill your needs. And I think, honestly, these days, especially with how wild basketball is, I think basketball is the weirdest portal as far as just guys saying, yep, 1 year we're going. I think that's almost the attitude you have to take these days.
I thought it was interesting too. He noted that he's been the Oklahoma coach now for 40 days. Like, this was his 40-day press conference. I thought that was strange. We got an email from Mike Hawk. Hey guys, we got a press conference with coach today. I'm like, today, now, right now. So that was cool. But I think that was like a little clock went off in his head. 40 days, taking some summer, going to some camps, going to see some AAU summer guys, and then you won't have access to me until school starts again. So, but he was asked what stood out to him, kind of a lifelong Chicago guy, right? Pretty much coming to Oklahoma, 2 totally different places. He said, without a doubt, it's been the people and how warm and welcoming Oklahomans have been. He said he figured it would last about 48 hours. He said, as long as I'm undefeated, right? But so far, he continues to be blown away, Ryan, I guess, by what you call the Oklahoma standard.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that we talk about. I've always kind of had the opinion that we probably, like, everywhere you live, you probably go like, oh, Chicago people are the best, or Oklahoma people are the best. But it seems to be something that no matter where you go, everyone talks about how friendly everyone is. And that's something that you can really recruit to that family atmosphere and that culture that he wants to build. Although I do think the funniest part, John, was Porter did, I don't know if we're supposed to say this, but he did admit that he wasn't as up to date on his Oklahoma geography as he'd like to be. He was pleased to find out that Oklahoma City is just a hop, skip, and a jump from Norman. Helps things out when you can recruit to an NBA city. But yeah, it's one of those things that's what Porter, he talked about so much, the athletic department being the right fit as far as how well it's run, but the family atmosphere, it seems like he's making his home in Norman as well, which, look, you're not going to hear bad things out of your coach 40 days in. That's probably a terrible sign if you do, but that's a good sign for Oklahoma fans who maybe read some stuff that, hypothetically down the road, like Notre Dame's a dream job. Well, maybe you can keep him for a little bit here if he seems to be that content.
And you know what? Tulsa's only 2 hours away. Up next on the
Yes.
SI Sooners podcast, we skipped a week. I know, shame on us, but we're going to drop some NFL draft on you guys.
Hey, listen up. Spring is here, but you know the seasons in Oklahoma. Hot one day, cold the next. That's a lot of work for your heating and air unit, but the guys at Trade Pros got you covered. Sign up for one of their no-hassle service plans. They'll come out twice a year and tune up your AC and your furnace, and you get priority scheduling and discounts. Just call Chris at Trade Pros, 405-316-0598. That's 405-316-0598. Or go to TradeProsOKC.com. Hey, are you a business owner looking to get your product out there to the masses? Let's say you run a hotel in Norman or a car dealership in Oklahoma City or a restaurant in Edmond, or maybe you're a small online business who creates and sells OU merchandise and you just want Sooner Nation to come sample your wares. Well, then consider advertising in this space right here on the SI Sooners podcast. SI Sooners reaches thousands of readers, viewers, and listeners literally every day, and the SI Sooners podcast is the ideal place to find your next customer. To advertise, send an email to allsoonersi@gmail.com or DM us on Twitter at all_Sooners.
If you are on Twitter, you can always follow SI Sooners and all_Sooners, if I can get that one right. Ryan is at Radios Ryan. I'm at John E. Hoover. Our website is allsooners.com. We are a Fan Nation affiliate, as you all know by now, part of the Sports Illustrated Network. Listen, 90% of our content at SI Sooners is free. So just click and enjoy, right? But now we also offer the old premium content. It's new. It's extra. You're not paying for it if you don't want to pay for it. And if you want the free stuff, you still get the free stuff. So it's the best of both worlds. So that's where you're going to find our exclusive reporting, a little bit deeper insight, some of our own commentary on the topics, some in-depth analysis for sure. We've done some of those already. And of course, we're going to offer up our opinions as well. You want to sign up. Trust me, that's $1 for the first month. You can go monthly. That's $5.99 a month. Monthly. Okay, think about that. $5.99 a month. Or go yearly, and that's only $5 a month. Folks, who can't afford $5 a month? Well, sometimes me, but you can also add the Sports Illustrated magazine subscription for another $10 a year. That's $70 for the Sports Illustrated magazine. Access to all our stuff, and guess what? Access to everything Fan Nation does, everything SI does. That's so cheap. If you sign up at allsooners.com, please. You get, like I said, premium content from affiliates all across the entire Sports Illustrated network. Plus, you get SI's own premium content, so check it out. But we ask that you please sign up from allsooners.com. It's like remember the kid that knocks on your door with a wagon full of magazine subscriptions, right? Remember him? No, before your time, Ryan. Well,
yeah, a little bit before my time, John.
If you sign up at allsooners.com, Ryan and I get to go to summer camp. Same kind of deal, sort of. No, seriously, we don't get to go to camp. We get to go spend all that money to go cover these elite recruiting camps this summer so we can bring you guys more premium content. It's a beautiful thing. It's like the circle of life. Allsooners.com. Again, first month is $1. Okay, Ryan, we've been kind of playing catch up since we missed that one podcast, last one of the month, after your house was nearly erased by, what was it, a meteor shower, something like that? So
yeah, I think so. Felt like it.
Yeah, so I'm glad everyone's okay, by the way. Let's get into what we meant to get into last week, the NFL draft. I will go first. Ryan, what an ideal situation for Creed Humphrey. No, I mean, the team with the NFL MVP from 2 years ago, Patrick Mahomes, they needed one thing to make him better, and that was pass protection. And so Andy Reid, what does he do? He goes out and trades for a 2-time Pro Bowl offensive tackle in Orlando Brown, Big Zeus. And then Zeus tells Andy Reid, hey, man, you need to draft Creed Humphrey. Worked out pretty good. I'm sure their evaluation was a little more thorough than that. But, man, they draft Creed at the end of the second round, Ryan. And here's a guy who basically he did not allow a sack in his college career. So you got Mahomes, you got Andy Reid, you got as your head coach, you got Eric Bieniemy as your offensive coordinator. You got Tyreek Hill, one of the most innovative explosive offenses in the entire NFL. You got a bunch of other superstar players. Travis Kelce's another one. They're a Super Bowl contender every year. Perfect fit, Ryan, for Creed Humphrey.
Yeah, and the one thing that you kind of alluded to but didn't explicitly mention too is that this Chiefs team is quite literally replacing their entire offensive line. So Creed Humphrey is going to get to come in and he's going to get the same exact spiel as everybody else. Look, guys, we're going to have 5 new starters. You come in, you work your butt off, you compete, you show that you can academically handle everything on the whiteboard, which is never a concern we've had with Creed. And Creed Humphrey is not only going to be walking into a great situation to win early, but there's no reason why he won't have as fair a shot as anybody else to win the job outright. If not out of camp, he'll be battling for reps all year long. So it's not even one of those scenarios where, okay, what a great situation. They've upgraded the left tackle, but you've got some established starters you have to unseat. No, it's none of that. He's going to be able to come in and from day one legitimately compete and have every chance to start. So I don't know what better situation you could ask for. If you're Creed, you would say, well, if I'm drafted in the first round and get that slotted money, that would have been nice. But we knew that Creed, as long as he can avoid injury, heaven forbid, he's probably going to be 10, 12-year starter in this league. And he's just going to be able to continue to add those years on and stack those years with the opportunities he's afforded in Kansas City.
Now, Bill Belichick proved, to me anyway, and to a lot of other people, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that he doesn't give one rip about positive marijuana tests, right? 2 draft picks on the 2 Oklahoma guys that were suspended for failing a drug test last year. I'm not saying he should or shouldn't give a rip. That's not for me to say. But the NFL that he coaches in now isn't the same NFL as it was just 5 or 6 years ago. Remember, LeGarrette Blount was suspended after an arrest for marijuana, the charges of which were dropped, but because it's the NFL, he still had to sit out a full game suspension. That doesn't happen anymore. So those times have changed. And Belichick drafted both of the Oklahoma players who were suspended. Ronnie Perkins in the 3rd round, Ramondre Stevenson in the 4th round. It's like I think he likes both players, obviously. He's not doing it to make a statement. But it's almost like he's saying, screw you and your antiquated policy, NCAA. I'm taking your guys. I thought that was impressive. And in fact, frankly, Ryan, I see both guys being immediate fits for the Patriots. You got Perkins with his super high motor. I think he's going to be a really good combo outside linebacker rush end, depending, like Bill Belichick said that day, depending what we do with him. And then Stevenson, think about it, is just the kind of big, bruising, versatile running back that Belichick loves.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bill Belichick also proved he doesn't give a rip what the Boston Globe thinks about anything. So that was the ugly side of the business. But yeah, the conversations about Ronnie Perkins coming in, obviously it was, what does every team view him as? And then you're going to have to go from there off of need. Well, guess what? Bill Belichick is a guy that, like, this isn't the norm, but he has shown during many playoff runs he's more than happy to change the entire defense week to week to fit whatever game plan he needs. So who better in the NFL as far as a defensive mind to go and say, you know what, we're going to start with what Ronnie Perkins is good at. We're going to teach him the rest. And no matter how quickly he picks it up, how much we like it, love it, hate it, I fully believe Ronnie Perkins is going to be put in every position to succeed because that's just what Bill Belichick does. Then you flip over to the other side of the ball. The one knock on Ramondre Stevenson was we don't know if he can be an every down back in this league. Guess what? The Patriots do not believe in every down backs. They're going to come in and have I know that this is the Trey Norwood comp, but they're Swiss Army knife guys. Well, Ramondre Stevenson's going to come in. You know he can pass block, so Belichick's going to love that. He doesn't have as much tread on his tires. Belichick's going to love that. And he's going to put him in every situation to be able to contribute. Is he going to be a fantasy stud for Sooner fans for years to come? No, sorry. But he should have a nice start to his career there in New England, in a very low pressure situation where he can really contribute to an offense.
How surprised were you that Trey Brown went in the 4th round to Seattle, and the guy you just mentioned, Trey Norwood, went in the 7th round to Pittsburgh? I mean, both of those organizations, now think about this, Seattle, especially recently, and Pittsburgh, are renowned for great defensive back play, like all-time elite defensive backs have played there. You think those guys are going to stick?
Yeah, so let's start with Trey Norwood, because that's more the question. Trey Brown getting drafted in the 4th round, I think you're more likely that you're at least going to get a shot into the first part of the season. Trey Norwood, I think that the reason he was drafted will be if he sticks or not. Obviously, he doesn't have a ton of tape due to injury, unfortunate stuff like that. But when he was on the field, the dude made plays, John. We talked about it so much that in basically 6 games, he vaulted all the way up to 3rd in the NCAA in interceptions. If he is able to make those plays, be that ball hawk at either the nickel corner spot or a hybrid safety, whatever, we're going to know because he's going to make the roster. If he is making those plays in practice, Trey Norwood's going to stick on the roster. And what better situation than the Steelers, who are so like they want to give their draft picks specifically every chance in the world. That's just their organizational belief. The shocking one to me was Trey Brown in that 4th round to the Seahawks, which is probably a me thing because I've still got the Legion of Boom in my head, John, of the huge physical defensive backs. Trey Brown's the opposite. He's not huge. He's got track speed, but it's a great fit for a guy still developing as a corner. He's still got that little bit of technique to be taught, so he's not so grabby, but the Seahawks are a great fit for any corner, John, that they've just, no matter how good or bad their defense is, it seems like they just groom playmakers there on the boundary of the defense. So I think that both Sooner defensive backs are going to have a great shot to, if not they're starting, really contributing, at least be on rosters come week 1.
Yeah, you're right about the Seahawk defensive backs. I think of Richard Sherman, and I think of safety like Earl Thomas, guys like that, 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", physical, rough you up. And, Trey tried to play that way in college, and it didn't really work out for him. He got a little, like you said, too handsy. But you hear Pete Carroll talk, and what does Pete Carroll say? The NFL's evolving. We need smaller cornerbacks. Oh, wow. Okay. So what are you going to do with all those big cornerbacks you've been stockpiling for all these years? I guess they're, they've moved on obviously from the Legion of Boom, but any surprise Adrian Ealy didn't get drafted? I say no. I'm not surprised that he didn't get drafted. Any surprise he got drafted by the Ravens? I say absolutely no, because the Ravens, above anybody else, knows what Bill Bedenbaugh's guys are capable of.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not too stunned that he didn't get selected. I feel like if you're not in those first 3 rounds, maybe the top half of the 4th round, it really becomes who loves you, who falls in love with you, but also everyone's draft board gets so sorted. It becomes kind of the Ravens may have loved Ealy, but they also may have looked and said, we've got this guy, and this guy that are higher on our board, and he's still there. We're going to go grab him, circle back, hopefully get him as a free agent. So it's one of those things that if you're going to go undrafted, that's about as good a situation as you can go in. But I do wonder if maybe Adrian Ealy was sitting there on draft night saying, maybe I should have come back to OU. Maybe not, but with his landing spot, I think he ended up making the right decision. He's going to be able to develop in that Ravens system. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's able to come in and make an impact if someone goes down or just rotating in for a drive here or there to keep everyone fresh with how much those Ravens like to ground and pound.
Yeah. Let's talk about an uncomfortable subject in this part of the country, Ryan. The Big 12, for the first time, had 0 draft picks in the first round. 0. The only Power 5 league to do that, which, Ryan, I looked it up, happens to be a direct correlation to the 2017 recruiting class, right? When their Big 12 was the only Power 5 conference that had 0 5-star recruits. 0 5-star recruits equals 0 first-round draft picks? Really? You think there's a correlation? Yeah, I think there's a correlation. Now, Lincoln Riley, to his credit, said the sky's not falling. We talked to him a couple of days later after the draft, a couple of weeks, I guess. But all respect to Lincoln, let's be realistic here. The Big 12 hasn't won a national championship now in 15 years, and there's a reason for that. They haven't signed as many 5-star athletes like the SEC and the Big 10 and even a few ACC schools have. And without that talent, you don't win national championships. Simple as that. without national championships, without that talent, they don't produce nearly as many draft picks. And guess what? That's correlative too. Without those draft picks, those NFL high school NFL prospects are saying, "Man, I don't want to go play in the Big 12. They didn't have no first round draft picks. That league's not very good." Yikes. So really, without the national titles, without the obvious path to the draft, Ryan, you're seeing fewer and fewer 5-stars jumping in bed with the Big 12. It's an ugly cycle. I've mentioned the circle of life earlier. This is kind of that. Which, fact of the matter is, I think Oklahoma can break that cycle this year, 2021, by winning a national championship. I think they're one of the 3 or 4 or 5 teams that can win a national championship. And if that happens, Lincoln Riley, Ryan, will keep getting those recruits.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a problem that you have to look at twofold, because I know that we kind of noted this in the initial reaction that we saw on Twitter. And I know that Twitter's not real life, all this stuff, but the initial reaction was the Sooner fans going, well, our best picks, Creed was just not going to be a first rounder because of his position. If you look to next year, you've got the potential of Isaiah Thomas, Perion Winfrey, Nick Benito, Spencer Rattler, obviously, which to that I say, absolutely. This is not like a panic button moment for Oklahoma, because everyone, basically the whole gang's coming back to try and chase a national championship. The problem is that when Oklahoma has 1 year like that, where everyone decides to come back, the rest of the conference says, well, you guys didn't do it, so what else are you going to do? You can't really rely on Texas, of all people. Like TCU and Baylor have been more likely to produce first-round talent than Texas has over the last 5 or 6 years. And that's just, when you talk about perception, John, that's a killer, because we talk about there are so many expectations, the lofty expectations on this Oklahoma team, and rightly so. But let's talk about the dark side of that. If for some reason the Sooners aren't able to convert, say for whatever reason, maybe an Alabama stubs their toe, ends up as the 4 seed, OU goes in 1v4. In normal years, if OU gets into a dogfight with Alabama and loses by a last-second field goal, everyone's going to go, wow, those are 2 really great teams that went at it. That's football. That happens. But here's the other side. OU has had this year circled for so long. What's going to be the word on the recruiting trail? Well, guys, Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch, they've been telling you, just wait. It's coming. Guess what? That time has come, and the result is the exact same. And that's where the Big 12 being behind them, that's where that becomes the real problem, is you're no longer the Clemson scenario of you're recruiting to a power in a bad conference. It's becoming, oh, you can't get over the hump, and they play in the Big 12, and you have this, and you have that. So it's really dicey and playing with fire, and it just puts so much pressure on this year. And I know it's not everything, but it's one of those things that you look back in 2 or 3 years and you could say, oh, you had all the momentum, and if it stagnates, this could be a reason why.
So here's my kind of final take on it. And I think a lot of Oklahoma fans feel this way about it as well. Who gives a rip about the rest of the Big 12? As long as OU, or if you're a Texas fan, Texas, or if you're an Oklahoma State fan, Oklahoma State, or whoever your team is, Iowa State this year, as long as your team wins the league, gets to the playoff, gives itself a chance to win it all every few years, like Oklahoma 2017, Oklahoma again in 2021, has a chance. That's all Lincoln Riley needs to care about. He doesn't need to concern himself with how the Big 12 is doing. Oh, are we compared with the SEC? He doesn't need to worry about that. He's not paid $8 million a year to think about what, how TCU is not carrying their weight in the Big 12, or Baylor, or whoever. He's carried this conference long enough. What more does he need to do to raise the profile of this league, right? He needs to win an Natty, yes. But like I said, I think there's a decent chance of that happening this year. Up next on the SI Sooners podcast, we're going to tell you guys all about Oklahoma's national championship hopes in another sport.
Guys, spring has sprung, and you know what that means. Lawnmowers, weed whackers. Listen, if you've got weeds sprouting up everywhere like the rest of us, then Manscaped has just what you need. They are the industry leader in men's grooming products below the waist or wherever you find those unwanted weeds. And we're going to tell you how to get 20% off your entire order. Ryan?
Yeah, John, look, we're on the other side of Easter. That means as planting season has arrived, you got to pull those weeds before any of the good stuff can come up. So that's what the Lawnmower 3.0 is exactly for, John. We've told you before, it's got that skin-safe ceramic blade, the LED light so you know exactly what you're doing. And hey, it's even got that great moisture resistant coating on it, that outer body, so you can take it into the shower with you for all of your spring cleaning needs.
Now, just remember, Manscaped makes a great gift. I've told you before, Father's Day's coming up. I've ordered some for the men in my family. Don't wait till Christmas. That's too long. SI Sooners podcast listeners get 20% off, but you got to do it soon, right? It's the promo code SOON. You get 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code SOON. SOON, promo code SOON. Manscaped.
Final segment of the SI Sooners podcast. Ryan, OU opened the Big 12 tournament this morning by doing what? Beating the crap out of another Big 12 team. It's something that they've done for the last 20 years, 22 years under, 25 years under Patty Gasso. So the format of this thing is as follows. You get 6 teams make the tournament. You got 2 pools of 3 teams each. You play 2 pool games on one day. That's today. Everybody plays 2 pool games today. Then you play the championship game tomorrow. Simple as that. 2 days, tournament's over. It's brilliant. You have a conference champion in 2 days, unlike the baseball tournament, which seems like it takes 11 days sometimes. So this evening, the Sooners will continue their domination of Texas Tech, who they only beat just barely in the regular season meeting. Beat them 3 times, but boy, the games were close. 40-0 in those 3 games combined, Ryan. Yikes, that's bad. It's bad softball by the Texters, who beat Baylor today, by the way. Ryan, you've been in the stadium for the last few games. You've attended the Bedlam series for us. You saw it with your own eyes. So I'll ask you the question that Oklahoma fans want answered, but they're also kind of maybe afraid to face the truth about. Okay. Can Oklahoma win a national championship with G. Juarez and Shannon Sale as their co-aces? I think they need to be much better against better competition coming this postseason. It's going to be tough. Or does the freshman Nicole May step into what is a kind of a frontline starter role to face some of those NCAA heavyweights?
Yeah, and I think it's going to come down to that. That's the reality of this offense is going to set all the records you want. They're going to set the batting average, slugging percentage. They already have the OU mark for home runs, tacked on another, I believe it was 3 today against Baylor. Sometimes it's hard to keep track once they get those things going. But like you said, John, it's going to come down to the pitching. Patty Gasso has kind of alluded to as much. She basically, in the lead up to the Big 12 tournament, said the pitching has to be better. That's what they're focused on. That's what they're working on. And the fact of the matter is it's the walks and the hit by pitches and those things that are digging the Sooners into a hole. You saw it today in game 1 against Baylor. The reason that they had 2 runs in the first inning is because Shannon Sale, while absolutely dominant, finishes the day with 10 strikeouts. She couldn't find the strike zone early on in that first inning. The Baylor hitters were able to get ahead. And when you get into a Women's College World Series scenario like that, you're going to be going up against much better lineups. If they get ahead, they're going to start being more and more aggressive. That puts pressure on the defense. I know it's the best fielding defense in college softball, but you're ramping up that pressure. And it's a team that's going to be playing in front of at least a 50% capacity stadium. Let me tell you, John, the atmosphere in Hall of Fame Stadium is awesome. You never know what's going to happen. There's some freshmen out there who have been absolute world beaters, but it's going to be the Women's College World Series. One error can cost you things like that. You talk about G. Juarez in the 2 Bedlam games 2 times in the 3rd inning. She got dinged for 2 2-run blasts that put the Sooners behind the 8 ball. So that's what G. Juarez is going to have to be better, John. Shannon Sale, she's going to have to just limit the balls, limit those walks. And I'm actually really fascinated to see. We're going to learn a lot about what Patty Gasso thinks of her pitching staff tonight. If G. Juarez gets the start against the Red Raiders, setting things up for Nicole May to start against Oklahoma State tomorrow, that is going to be as much as you need to know about what Patty Gasso is feeling, though. As I say that, Iowa State just leveled the game against the Cowgirls. So maybe it's all a moot point, and it's Oklahoma and the Cyclones tomorrow in the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, so I think when you talk about the offense too, Ryan, what we've seen obviously is the best offense. Almost you can't quite say it yet because the season's not over, but they're heading toward numbers wise the best offense in the history of the game. You've seen them come back down to earth just a little bit as they faced better pitching, right? Whether that was, remember Georgia's Mary Wilson Avent shut them down for most of 5 innings, I think, until they got going a little bit. Oklahoma State's Carrie Eberly, Big 12 pitcher of the year. Those are the 2 pitchers who beat Oklahoma this year. And those are kind of if you ask me, those are kind of a tamed down version of the quality of pitching that Oklahoma's going to see in the postseason. So Ryan, yes, Juarez and Sale need to pitch better. When they're in the strike zone and they're not hitting, they're not giving out free passes, I think that Oklahoma has the bats to be able to outscore people. If you're putting extra runners on base in addition to giving up a few hits here and there, that puts a lot of pressure, like you said, on the offense to produce and produce and produce. They need to quit hitting people. They need to quit walking people, but the bats got to be better too. It's championship time, man. You've got a national championship on the line. You've got arguably the best lineup in the history of the college game. I don't care who's pitching. You need to get some hits. The girls were tired against Georgia. We saw that. And they were flat for some reason against Oklahoma State. If you don't have that pitching, well, I'll put it this way. If you're one-dimensional, Ryan, you can't win a national championship.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say this, John, the Oklahoma State crowd for that Friday game was about as hostile as an environment I have ever seen in college softball. I understand that the pressure is going to be ramped up the Women's College World Series, but guess what, John? Oklahoma plays home games for the Women's College World Series. It's going to be a hostile atmosphere for the other team. So I thought that was a really interesting response. And Oklahoma still played well enough to win that game, I thought. Friday night, obviously they come back Saturday and Sunday and get the job done. So it'll be really interesting to see, but it's really intriguing. I was asking some questions around the press box today when I got here, John, because yesterday, or was it today, the days all run together, we got the CDC official guidance that if people are vaccinated, they don't need to be wearing masks. They can be in crowded areas. It's kind of like a life resuming to normal. And I'm curious, there's a month between the Big 12 tournament and the Women's College World Series, essentially 4 weekends. Is that enough time for the planners of the event to expand things back up to get that approval from the NCAA? Because that could be the ace in the hole that no one is talking about. Even if they can levy it and get a 75% crowd or a 100% crowd, no one in college softball has played before full capacity crowds. And all of a sudden, every single team except for the Sooners and the Cowgirls are going to be thrown into the biggest games of the year in front of the biggest crowds of the year, and they're all going to be hostile turned against them. That might be the wild card that we're not talking about right now, that in a month we might look back and say, holy cow, the fans won a national championship for the Sooners or the Cowgirls.
Just don't start creating any virus spikes before football season gets here. Please. We got to get through football season. And I can't wait to see the crowds in football games, man. That's going to be electric this year, especially. Ryan, speaking of football, it's officially the off season when the lists start coming out, and we at SI Sooners, guys, we don't have any football to talk about, any real football to talk about till mid-July. So that means it is list season. And I'm going to pat myself on the back. At SI Sooners, we got some damn cool lists coming down the pike. Number one, Ryan, I'll just ask you, how much fun has it been for you to write the Half 100 series, where every Friday you're diving into one of Oklahoma's 50 conference championships? I think we're doing 5 stories, 10 different years that they won a conference title over 5 different weeks. It's been cool. And I've been reading your stuff. I've been proofing it. I've been reading it. I've enjoyed the heck out of it.
Yeah. And as we go further and further, it's been more and more fun for me because yes, I'm a young pup. I get that, but I've always prided myself on trying to be able to bring some intelligence to the conversation past just the 25 years I've been hurled around the sun on this rock. But as we dig farther and farther back, it's more and more fun for me because you'll learn stuff every single time that you can't necessarily remember or place. For instance, we were looking at it and I was going over the Orange Bowl that basically the Sooner Schooner had a hand in costing Oklahoma the game against Washington. I've always heard about that game. I couldn't place what year, what time. So I'm pulling up, I'm like, oh, it's that one. You get to place that, kind of relive that, as I'm sure everyone else has been going about it. So we're about to hit the real decades of dominance, the 50s, the early years where the sport doesn't even resemble what is being played now. It was more the Oklahoma rugby team than football. I'm really juiced for that. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun working through Lincoln, Bob, and Barry.
Quick story for you. Stoops used to tell the story about Barry Switzer coming up to him after the 2003 Sugar Bowl when they lost to LSU and Nick Saban. Switzer came up and said, "You SOB, did you think you were going to win every one of them? Be in a national championship, win it, being a national championship, win it." That's not how it happens. Switzer endured like 4 or 5 of those where he was like, They were the better team. They were the dominant team. They were the favored team. They had the better talent. They had more NFL players, and somehow they lost. So, yeah, Switzer's got some painful lessons that he imparted to Stoops, and Stoops learned pretty quick as well. So let's break down our list for everybody real quick. Ryan, see if I can get this right. This Sunday, we start our preview of the 2021 depth chart. So we did one pre-spring. Now we're doing one post-spring, and we're going to run these up every week. We're going to have new stuff every day, right up to Big 12 Media Days, which is, remember the date? July 14th and 15th. That's right. Like a Wednesday and Thursday this year. It's weird.
Your poor pocketbook.
Exactly. So on Mondays, Ryan is giving you an in-depth preview of every team on the schedule. He's already hit the Green Wave and the Catamounts. And next week, it's all about the Huskers. Now, I love Tuesdays because that's when I count down Oklahoma's top transfers of the last 20 years. So we got 10 of those. We've already had CJ Ayu, who's a guy that I covered. Fantastic player. Yeah, you guys, listen, I know you think you know who number 2 and number 1 are. Maybe maybe those are obvious. Maybe you're right. But I'm telling you, I love this series because I'm coming across some guys on my list. I got like 28 names on my little notebook paper here. Coming across names I haven't thought about in like 10 years. I'm like, I got to get him on my list. So it's been fun. You know, maybe their path to OU was odd or different or whatever their story was. It's always interesting with transfers. So that's every Tuesday. On Wednesdays, we're reviewing one player each week from the spring game. And that's been fun too, because what we're doing is we're watching the spring game, rewatching for like me the 5th time, rewatching the spring game. We're picking one guy and we're watching every play that he does up and down the field, taking notes on every play. And then kind of recount it for you guys. You know, what was his performance? Who was the competition he was going against? The whole thing. So we go back and watch that guy and give you the good, the bad, and the ugly on everything that they did. Now Thursdays, I think Ryan and I are taking turns at counting down the top 10 players in OU history at every position. I hit the O-line, he hit the D-line, and I'm telling you, those were impossible. So I can't wait to see what the rest of them look like, but they were fun. Fridays, Ryan is writing 5 stories again that recount the 50 conference championships. We called it Hang Half 100 on them, because half 100 conference championships. How clever are we? I think that was Ryan's idea, by the way. So he's working hard to bring you guys the best, you know, championship moments and memories in Sooner history, right? And then Saturdays, this is fun too. We present 10 players on this year's team who need to step up in 2021. 10 guys who, you know, think about it, for one reason or another in their careers, they need to have a big off season, and then a big fall preseason, and then a big, hopefully in their case, fall. Maybe the guy's clock is ticking. Maybe the coaches recruited over him and brought in a bunch of dudes, you know, at his position. Maybe there's just an opportunity for him to step up. Maybe there's an absence of players. Anyway, last week we wrote about Jaden Davis, and there's some young dudes behind him. So if you think about it, he really needs to make the most of his chances. Kid is already a junior. Jaden Davis, is going into his junior year. So think about it. It goes fast when you play as a true freshman. So this is Ryan's first summer doing this. This is my second summer doing this, coming up with list ideas. So he's getting like the full effect of the insane ideas that kick around inside my head all year long to bring you guys exclusive content at SI Sooners. Ryan, what do you think of list season so far?
Look, it's honestly a lot of work. That's what I didn't anticipate when you think off season, but then I'm just like, look, when we are so fortunate that the team we cover, the program we cover, I was kind of telling you this when I wanted to double, triple check, send you my defensive line list 2 or 3 times. Cause I basically said, look, you don't mess with the history of Oklahoma. We don't need the pitchforks outside of the SI Sooners offices in Broken Arrow. So it's been a lot of fun. And anytime you can kind of, like I said, just be able to go back, dive into the history books. I'm a history nerd. So anytime you can just kind of go back through, learn some new things, better illustrate what you've got going. I always find that to be fascinating and a lot of fun. And it's just a change of pace. It's fun content. It's different from what we do during the season, the grind of that. So I'm enjoying it so far. Check back in with me in 3 weeks. Now I'll let you know how we're really doing.
Yeah. I mean, I can't wait for Big 12 Media Days to get here. You can listen to the SI Sooners podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcast. iHeart Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Or if you have an Amazon-enabled device, just say, Alexa, play the SI Sooners podcast. You can always go to our website, allsooners.com, click on the player that's right there, embedded in the story that says podcast. It's right there. You can listen on your phone, your tablet, or your computer, or watch the video version on my YouTube channel. That's John Hoover Media. For Ryan Chapman, I'm John Hoover. See you guys.